next for you? Like, what do you have coming up
Retirement.
on the next year? Yeah?
Oh my God, I just want to chill.
You raked in all the millions.
I'm gonna chill on your yacht.
Just gonna lay on the big pile of cash.
Chill with my kids and drink a beer.
So, my name's Gary from HOPTALK. Obviously, you guys know. But this is, I guess, technically the first official podcast, video. I don't know what it is. We're calling it HOPTALK. We're talking to people that we find interesting and that we love in the LA beer scene. And
I'll leave.
today, we're
this
here.
was pot talk.
I know,
I'm
right?
in the wrong place.
Well, luckily, we're not letting you leave. And we're here with two awesome people. Franny from the LA Brewers Guild, Francis Lopez, doing awesome stuff.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. And Jimmy from Beer Belly.
Yay.
Thank you for hosting us here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, put together an awesome tap list.
Cheers.
Let's cheers out to start it. And I think the first thing that I just want to get off the table is, what are we drinking here? So, what are we starting with?
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that.
Yeah?
So I am drinking beer from far away in the northern lands of Berkeley.
Yes.
It's Finer Things from Fieldwork Brewing, because if I picked one of my brewer's beers to say on the podcast, then I would get sad faces from other people who I did not.
You can't play favorites, right?
So,
that's some foresight.
So, boom.
That is some serious political foresight.
You're
right there.
thinking like a step ahead.
Don't want to hear from Peter Mumford right now.
It's
Nice.
like, thanks for the invite.
What are you
Right?
drinking?
Actually, he's going to show up. I've got State Brewing from here to Gardena.
Ooh, nice.
Nice IPA. A little cloudy.
It's one of those hybrids, right?
Yeah.
And I am drinking Yo Coco from Highland Park. So you can't go wrong with a Highland Park beer, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not always a big coconut IPA kind of guy. It's a little sweet, but these guys kill it. Like it's balanced enough for me to enjoy.
I've actually really enjoyed coconut IPAs.
Yeah.
You don't see it too often, but I can't think of a bad coconut IPA I've ever had.
That's good. Yeah.
But also, if you don't like coconut, you don't like coconut.
Right.
So.
As long as they're not using that like nasty extract that doesn't taste like coconut, it tastes like what coconut does when it wants to kill itself.
Yeah.
That it's cool.
Like Mounds, what is that? Almond Joy?
Right.
That kind of coconut syrup.
Yeah. Just throwing candy bars in the mash tun. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
All right.
There's
So
a time and place for that.
So we're going to talk a little bit about LA beer. That's why we're here. We're releasing our brand new 2019 LA Brewers shirt, celebrating everything that's awesome about the LA beer scene, and in partnership with the LA Brewers Guild, obviously. And I kind of want to dig, you guys are both heavily entrenched in the beer scene for many years, but in different facets. And I think that it'll be interesting to kind of dig into each of your guys' kind of backgrounds and your perspectives on where we are now in LA beer in 2019. So I wanted to start off with Jimmy.
Okay.
Give us a little background. Like, we're at Beer Belly. We're in your establishment. You started in 2011. Like, how did it get going? How'd you do this?
Really, out of a passion and a comfortability with the craft beer industry and community. Before I opened up Beer Belly, I thought about doing a wine bar, a champagne bar, a Korean fusion bar. But as I went to more breweries and went to more beer events, it was a no-brainer. It was just automatic. I know this is where I'm comfortable. These are my people. Whether I have a business or not, these are my people. So naturally, I want to do something I want to do. And that was kind of the thing when I was planning it out. 2008, 2009, it was a rough time, a little, recession.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, why don't I take this time to do something I'm passionate about instead of something that I feel like I need to do to pay the bills, whatnot. So beer was just, natural.
So you had already kind of been into beer. How did you get into it originally?
Going to breweries and trying different styles, different beers. I think one of my first memories, eye-opening memories, was Anchor Steam and reading the label and seeing that their steam method was different and unique, and I was like, holy shit, you can make beer different ways. I'm really enjoying this. Let me try some other stuff. and see what they're doing, and maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. But that was just my kind of exploration into the trying different things, just like trying different food.
Right. And I think what's interesting is that you're born and raised here in LA, right?
Yes.
So, being a part of, being in the LA beer scene, and then also choosing Koreatown as your place to open up your beer bar. I mean, I find that, I don't know how calculated that was, but like, that's an interesting move. And I think in 2019, we're seeing it paying dividends here. But like, how was it year one?
Fortunately, we had a successful opening. Koreatown is my hometown, and I knew I wanted to spread the gospel of craft beer,
yes.
Right? I think that's how a lot of us started, and people still are feeling that till this day. So naturally, Koreatown is my home. I want to have a small little quiet pub in the back of a parking lot where me and my wife could serve up some rare beers. Maybe there's some munchies coming out of the kitchen, and people can come by for some cool stuff.
Yeah, and you just hit on two things that I think are really important to touch on. First one, the beer side. So how did you get into, how was the beer buying process in 2011, like when we only had a handful of breweries here in LA?
Yeah, actually, Christina Perozzi was my kind of beer coach, and she would say, hey, why don't you do all LA beer? And I was like, I don't think there's enough LA beer to do. I only have 12
really
taps,
wasn't.
but even for 12 taps, it was pretty hard to do hyper local. Eagle Rock, Craftsman, the brewery, there wasn't that much. But of course now today there's too many great breweries, and it hurts me because as much as I want to spread the love and pour so many different great beers, I still only have 12 taps,
right? And
there's only so much beer I can move.
But
that being said, I think there's a great new generation of craft beer enthusiasts, people spreading the word and people getting into it. So I think it's pretty exciting to see the new generation of beer drinkers in LA coming around.
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember your first time here at Beer Belly?
Yes, it was pretty early on. So when Beer Belly opened up, I was just one of the editors of The Full Pint, which I'm the associate editor of The Full Pint now. And we were big fans of Jimmy right away. And actually one of my first memories when I was starting to get to know Jimmy was actually bumping into him at the Craft Brewers Conference in San Diego in 2012. And I was just infinitely impressed with the fact that someone who just opened a craft beer bar was actually doing his due diligence and like learning more about the industry, not just like buying really rare or hyped beer, but also getting to know the ins and outs of like what craft brewing actually is.
Right.
Because that's something that is actually very special. You don't really see a lot of that education being kind of tossed around with business owners, and especially when you have a lot of people who own multiple properties, it's not really top of mind. But that really stood out for a lot of us here in Los Angeles, was just the care and attention to detail that Jimmy and his team had like from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's awesome to see and awesome to hear. And my first time at Beer Belly was much later on. Like I only first came here maybe 3 years ago, something like that. But you touched on something earlier that I think is important to hit on whenever we're talking about Beer Belly, the food. Like, this is as much a foodie spot as it is a beer drinker spot, right?
It's Flavor Town.
Yeah, seriously. Right?
You're never going to live that one down.
How did the food component come into play?
I was fortunate enough to find a great chef. He's from Philly. He's no longer with us. He's moved on to open up a couple other restaurants now. But he was I was his number one customer at his food truck.
Nice.
So when Chef Wes was looking for the next chapter in his career, and I was opening up this place, it was a match made in heaven. And fortunately for me, his ridiculous food and crazy creations just pair really well with beer.
Yeah. And you've continued it on since he's gone. Like I don't know if the Beast Burger, I just saw it got like written up somewhere, and I don't know if that was there back, like, did he roll that out? But, like, that got a bunch of fanfare a couple months back.
Death by duck fries.
Yeah, the Death by Duck Fries, like, it's just like, it's crazy. So as much as this is a beer spot, this is a foodie spot. And are you a foodie yourself?
Of course,
Yeah?
of course. I mean, I think food and beer and, of course, cocktails or wine, hand in hand, we're always exploring, trying new things, and responding to creativity. For me, it's all about the creativity. And when it comes to brewers or when it comes to chefs, sometimes they might miss, but the exciting part is discovering. So discovering some new stuff and being able to celebrate their creativity.
Yeah. And you mentioned cocktails. So a couple years back, you opened up a second location of Beer Belly in Long Beach. How did that come about? What was the impetus for, like, this is working so well that we want to do a second one?
It seemed like a natural progression. Long Beach is a great community. They're so proud in Long Beach. They're like, I'm not from LA, I'm not from OC, I'm from Long Beach, LBC. So I wanted to be part of that kind of strong community. And of course, they've got one of the world's best breweries in Beachwood.
Yeah.
So having them as neighbors, it felt right,
Yeah.
Over there we have a full liquor license, so we get to play with cocktails, beer cocktails. We have a tiki bar in the back.
Yeah, I want to go there so bad.
There's
you been?
more room.
I haven't. I've been hearing great things,
Yeah, me too.
and we actually were talking about how the CCBA summit is going to be in Long Beach this
You
September.
need a tiki
Crazy.
spot,
and
right?
we notoriously, all the LA brewers, and I blame Julian Strego for all of this, really. We all used to take over this bar in Sacramento called the Jungle Bird, and so our goal is to bring the Jungle Bird down to Long Beach.
All right, prepare yourself.
Oh my goodness.
I apologize in
bonkers.
advance, Jimmy.
So how many taps do you have at Long Beach?
Long Beach, we have 24.
24. Okay, so doubled it up. So I guess that kind of brings me to, like, present day, 2019. You're buying beer for 12 taps here. You have 24 taps there. You now have a local market that is thriving and a lot of breweries. What are we, 80 plus now, right?
As of this morning, 85.
Okay.
I want to cry. Slow down.
Cry with excitement, right?
Slow down.
But I think what's interesting is the way that you've integrated local, but you've also Beer Belly is one of the spots to go to get beers that are hard to find outside of Los Angeles too. Like, there's breweries, you're friends with a lot of people that bring their beer here and they don't bring it anywhere else in LA. And so the way that you integrate out of LA and the LA market is awesome. How the fuck do you do it?
One thing I learned from one of my mentors, shout out Ryan Sweeney,
Yeah.
Verdugo, Surlygo.
Yeah.
I can't name all his bars, I lost count.
It's like 20 now.
Right? It's all about relationships. And that is honestly the beauty of it. Just like us, just like brewers, just like people that work in the beer industry. And sometimes it's not even the beer industry, whether it's chefs that really like beer and just people. It's all about relationships. And so I feel fortunate enough to do what I love and go around, kind of the country. I don't travel too much, but things like GABF in Denver and when I get out, I feel very fortunate to make some friends and have some fun and drink some really good beer while doing it.
Yeah. And I think the takeaway here is that no matter when you come to Beer Belly, whether it's Koreatown, whether it's Long Beach, that you're going to find something really awesome to drink and you're going to get some really good food as well. You've done an awesome job, man.
Thank you.
I don't know how you continue it. There's so many breweries. I don't know how you keep it up, but just keep doing it. It's so cool.
I feel like the secret is to embrace creativity.
Yeah.
Whether wherever it comes from, to embrace that creativity, to share it with people, and hopefully there's a good response to it, and hopefully someone gets converted. Oh, I've never had a milkshake IPA before. I've never had a sour beer before. I've never had a bourbon barrel aged stout before, and when we can share happiness with other people and convert them into something that they'll appreciate for life. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's our job is done.
And I have to call out the talent that it takes to curate a very well-balanced tap list. You know, he mentioned that he only had 12 taps, but there's a sour, there's a pilsner, there's an IPA, there's a hazy, there's a pastry stout. Like, you're not just gonna see like 11 hazy IPAs and maybe a pilsner, maybe a sour. It's kind of all over the board there, just so that, you know, there is something for everyone too.
Yeah, and that just reminds me.
It's harder when you have less taps too.
Yeah, but I think that's, and I know that you curate beer and you work with some of the Golden Voice festivals and things like that. All good.
Getting thirsty here.
That's what happens when you compliment him.
Yeah.
No, all right. I'm holding my breath here. Thank you.
How did the Golden Voice stuff come about? And I feel like that kind of is born out of like what you were talking about, the creativity, the balance. Like that's what these festivals need. And when people are like, they want artisan brands and they want craft this and craft that, like they want someone that's not going to come in from the outside and be like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff from one distributor that we know is just gonna we're gonna be easy to get, but they work with someone that like understands what the tastes are and what the local market wants. So like, how did that come about?
The guy that brought me into the festivals, Nick Adler, he's actually a huge beer fan. He's a beer guy.
He's awesome.
From day one. I met him at his beer festival, the Vegan Beer Fest at the Roxy.
Yeah.
And that was already
the old days.
Yeah, that was already maybe a couple of years in, but that's where I met him. And fortunately enough, he is director of food and beverage at Golden Voice.
Wow.
And so we started working on some festivals together, and they always give me what I need to put on some good beer festivals. So with the resources that they give me, I have fun just putting together some fun stuff, and you know, it's a beautiful relationship and experience when people get to come out and see that music festivals doesn't have to be shitty beer. We get some crazy stuff.
I mean, I've experienced it firsthand. Like, you've made Arroyo Seco and some of these like local festivals so much more enjoyable. So,
I wish every
cheers to
concert
that.
was like that.
I know, right?
You know? And like, it's one of those things where a lot of the times Jimmy will curate breweries that never have will have never a chance to be at a large event like that. And like, it's like they're 1 time a year, 2 times a year when they're actually like, oh wow, like we're visible to thousands and thousands of people. Like this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I don't get too selective or political. I think everyone should be able to put their beer out there, and really the beer speaks for itself. No matter who the brewer is, who the owners are, what's going on politically or whatever, the beer is going to speak for itself, and that's where people will respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings me to like Franny and what you're doing here in LA Beer in 2019. I'm going to hold off on asking you about today.
I'm kidding.
Let's rewind. Like, how did you get into it all?
How did I get into drinking beer LA beer?
Yeah, get into craft beer and then your foray into the professional side of it.
So I was always kind of like a dissenting punk kid that like didn't really want to follow waves, and so when I was in college in Arizona, the land of shitty, cheap, watery beer, I was going to Tops Liquor in Tempe looking for bottles of 120-minute IPA. So I just like kind of super did a deep dive into like the craft beerness of things, because when you go to, you know, a school in Phoenix that's like just like a party school, all you want to do is like be the one that's like drinking the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale instead of the PBR and the Dogfish Head instead of the Newcastle. And so my love for beer really was rooted in flavor. I was like really super into food, and I just loved the narrative of small craft brewers and having that locality of things. And so, throughout college, whenever I would travel, I would look for the local breweries and things like that. So when I started writing about food professionally here in Los Angeles, when I moved back in 2010, we didn't really have very much going on in terms of breweries and in a beer culture here. LA Beer Week was awesome, but it was mostly, wholesalers pushing international portfolios in front of you. Like that, you'd have like amazing Belgian beer and amazing German beer, and maybe you would see like 3 or 4 local breweries that existed at the time. And so when I got involved with writing for the Full Pint, a lot of my early content was highlighting events like Vegan Beer Fest and festivals that actually went above and beyond to try to get locals involved. As that scene grew, I started working professionally for a couple of breweries, and after that I worked at the Guild, and I've been there for 3 years. And so I've kind of witnessed firsthand just like the ridiculous amount of growth in a short amount of time. When I was hired at the Guild in 2015, I had 21 breweries in the county of Los Angeles, and as I mentioned earlier, I just signed on number 85, and I have 3 more that are opening this week or next week. And so I don't know. It's pretty insane, and like our growth is a lot faster than other regions are. You'll notice that like San Diego has like 130 plus breweries, but that's over the course of 20 years. When you think about aside from Craftsman and Wolf Creek and Belmont and Bonaventure and Redcar, like that's 5 breweries. Everyone else is under 9 years old. And 85% of those people are less than 3 years old, then it's pretty overwhelming. So, like once you dip a toe in LA beer and you meet the people, you just kind of get stuck there because you never want to leave.
Well, I think the demand in the market and all the beers opening up, that created the job that you have today, right? Like there wasn't someone that did what you did before you did it, right?
No. So the Guild was founded in 2013 with 7 founding brewery members. And once they realized that they needed a little bit more organization, a little bit more hyper-localized support for the breweries, that's when they let me create the job that I have now. And I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to grow professionally with an organization from the ground up. What is funny is that when we look at where we land in comparison to my counterparts in other states and other like regions, we're growing very quickly, but we're adapting very quickly as well. Because, when you're a little bit behind on the times, like LA was, you have an opportunity to kind of see what San Diego's doing and see what San Francisco's doing and kind of learn from those situations and kind of adapt to that. And I think that's a very LA thing. We are very nimble. We're scrappy. We figure shit out like on the fly a lot of the times. And because we are still super young, there is still that very strong sense of community here where very few of us are actually distributing outside of California. Very few of us are producing over 10,000 barrels. And so, considering the population, how many bars and restaurants there are here, there's still a lot of room for growth. Whether or not that continues is suspect. I know that, a lot of people are falling on harder times. It's the ebb and flow of the industry. It's very natural, very normal, but we haven't seen it as drastically as other areas have, which is good, but we're bracing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone that hasn't heard of the Los Angeles County Brewers Guild, doesn't know what's going on with it. Like, I know your role does everything, and we could sit here for another hour talking about all the things you do.
Please
but
don't.
Maybe just like a couple of like the main things that like, why does the Guild exist? Why is it important?
So we are the local nonprofit for all of the independently owned craft breweries in Los Angeles County. So all the way down to Long Beach, all the way up to Lancaster, to the ocean, to all the way to Claremont. We basically advocate for the promotion and protection of brewers' rights. We support the California Craft Brewers Association at the state level and the Brewers Association nationally. So I show up to hearings when my brewers want to advocate for their tap rooms. I, work with the ABC and local law enforcement. And I kind of like get them the resources that they need for those types of things. On top of that, we are a marketing wing, so we produce LA Beer Week every June, Father's Day weekend, and throughout the year we've been sprinkling in smaller events to kind of help with our fundraising, since we like to keep the brewers' dues at a minimum, because they are small businesses. So like even when people see like all the shiny equipment and all the crazy, tanks and stuff when they go in a brewery, a lot of the times brewery owners aren't taking a paycheck for like the first 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 years of their existence. And so when you look at it that way, it really is like a genuine small business in the city.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you say independent breweries, and I know that some people may have seen the seal on some bottles. They may have seen a commercial here or there. Like, what's the significance of independence?
Independence just means that you know where you're giving your money to, really. Independent for us means that they are locally owned and not owned or operated by an outside entity, an outside corporate entity. So, for example, there are breweries who have been acquired that used to be craft breweries, and they've been acquired by, Belgian or internationally owned conglomerates, and so they own a whole bunch of places, and their decision making comes from the very top. It's not really a local thing. Their taxes and their like all of those things aren't really benefiting or stimulating the local economy. And so when you say independent, you're really putting your money back into your city. You're putting your money back into your community.
Yeah, and for me, it comes down to the people. Like when I can talk to the brewer, when I can talk to even the beer tender, the people that are serving the beer, that are passionate about just pouring it and seeing you enjoy it, that's where it comes full circle, I think, for me, on the consumer standpoint, where it's a magical thing where like you can see where it's made, you can see who's making it, and you can understand that like they aren't doing it for like $1 million payday. Like they're doing it because there's a craft and a passion and a love for what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it takes a person to like sit there for a moment and actually think about that, because otherwise we're just guzzling down beer and it's like, all right, this beer, this beer, this beer. But if you stop for a second and you think about like what's in your glass and where it came from and who's making it, I think it makes a whole lot more sense, this whole independent brewery thing versus everybody else, and why it even matters, because it's so easy to say like, who cares, it's just beer, but like it's so much more than that.
Well, it's kind of when you think about chain restaurants, right? Like I'd rather go and eat at Beer Belly and have like local food from like cool people, and I know who the employees are, versus like going through the drive-thru at Jack in the Box and maybe scratching the itch temporarily but not really feeling good about it later,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important where people want to spend their money, their hard-earned money. There should be transparency. And again, I think the beer speaks for itself, but it's really important that people support independently owned businesses.
Yeah.
There are some gray area breweries.
Right.
I don't know, Firestone. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that.
Oh, the Duval family, though.
Duval family,
the
yeah. They're not
family
bad.
still, they're not bad. They take care of their people, and they are a family-owned business, and they're not one of those people trying to lobby against small craft brewers. They actually help amplify small craft brewers, and I think that's a huge difference, is the lobbying power. At the state level here in California, we start to see these scary bills from, Anheuser-Busch, InBev, and Constellation brands that basically are trying to prevent our local independent breweries from growing, from being able to do certain things, or at least giving themselves like an unfair advantage that we can't possibly compete with, whether it's marketing dollars or incentives to retailers or anything of the sort. And so I think that's a big line in the sand too, and I think that's why a lot of people still really love Firestone.
There's also,
I know we love Firestone.
Right? They don't make bad beer.
They don't.
The brewery out of Placentia, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Like no one has really had like venture capital and like investments and private equity, and how do we feel about Oscar Blues and Canarchy and like all of those things. And I think at the core of it, they're still technically by definition an independently owned business. Whether or not they're large isn't, you can't blame someone for their success.
Sure.
The same way that we all love and support Sierra Nevada, and they're billionaires.
Adams.
Well, I think
Sam Adams.
the line gets drawn where you see with some of the international corporations that are doing some of the predatory marketing and sales tactics and some of the stuff that like crosses the line. And I think like until one of these bigger private equity corporations like starts crossing the line in like major ways, like the
Then we
definition
revisit it.
itself stands.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see like what's happening in San Diego right now with like the Ballast Point Festival thing, and like like friends wanting to support friends versus it's just and it gets so complicated, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of independent beer because that could go on forever. And there really is no end to it, but it's just an interesting time for where we're at in indie beer and like why we should support what we support. But I think in the end it comes down to like what you were saying, the beer speaks for itself, and you know, it comes back down to like supporting the people that you want to support and drinking something that you want to enjoy, right?
I will say, I think craft beer took kind of a misstep in thinking, okay, we're going to make IPAs and we are going to win market share and we are going to fight big beer with IPAs.
With full flavored beer of any sort, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we've seen, of course, is they buy up the small breweries. They put out IPAs. Uneducated people don't know the difference. They're like, I love Ballast Point Sculpin. I love craft beer, right?
Yeah.
But we all know it's not. What I do think everyone should be doing is fighting fire with fire in a way, and everyone should be making a light lager, a cheaper, affordable light lager, of course, high quality, delicious, but fighting that side of the battle instead of saying, I'm gonna make hazy IPAs. Let's win all those Bud Light drinkers with hazy IPAs.
Shots fired.
I fully support the lager life. I'm into it.
Absolutely.
Right,
I second that motion.
So we're coming to the end of it. I want to kind of get a sense for you in what, I mean, you said 85 breweries. Like, what's
86 if you count Highland Park's second location, which is technically another brewery. So
okay, there
86.
you go. Yeah. And so what do you see as like the horizon? Like, I know you can't project too much, but like, what's happening over the next 12 months? Come on, give me a sense for something.
I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 100 breweries in the next year and a half. But when you look at the map, I'm kind of impressed with what's happening right now.
Yeah.
You know, in the very beginning, everyone was opening up in Long Beach, Torrance, like the South Bay in general. But I just signed on a Monrovia brewery.
Nice.
I just signed on a Lomita brewery. And, you know, they're adjacent to the hubs. You know, downtown is slowing down a little bit because they've got like 9 now.
Yeah.
But you're seeing the Eastern County. We have 4 in the Antelope Valley now. Westlake is blowing up. I'm seeing pending licenses in like the most random parts of the county.
Yeah.
And LA County is really fucking huge.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
So there's there's still pockets of this county that have no breweries at all.
Yeah.
No beer bars at all.
Yeah.
You know, West Adams, you know, like those are all like slowly
South LA is
turned.
yeah,
and I think it's exciting. It's scary for me because I have to process all the paperwork. But
maybe you'll get an assistant or something.
One day, knock on something. I'm knocking on my head right now.
I volunteer Mac. He'll do it for you.
Spreadsheets on spreadsheets.
He's a perfect assistant. He does anything I say.
I mean,
there's a lot of room. It's just
it's
how they market themselves and how they get their local people in their tap rooms that will ensure their success.
I think we could all agree fresh beer is better beer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And becoming more and more local, being that community hub, whether it goes beyond beer, I think that is the future, where we have a lot more producers locally.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are 4,000 wineries in California.
Yeah, why not? You know?
Sure, why not?
And Jimmy, what's next for you? Like, what do you have coming up
Retirement.
on the next year? Yeah?
Oh my God, I just want to chill.
You raked in all the millions.
I'm gonna chill on your yacht.
Just gonna lay on the big pile of cash.
Chill with my kids and drink a beer.
Yeah. Do you have any plans for the upcoming year? Like, is there anything?
I don't
you're
know
looking
what
forward
I'm
to?
doing next week. No,
Okay.
there are no plans.
Okay.
I
You've got
wake
your
up-
events planned, and that's
I don't even know what events are coming up.
right.
I don't want to think about it.
Fair enough. I mean, you have to be flexible to to what's going on in the industry. So
I enjoy winging
There you
it.
go.
That is what I love.
Yeah.
And that's the problem solving and team building that I love. I don't know, my staff probably doesn't agree, but I don't plan ahead too far ahead.
That's good. That's good.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah,
I am booked 6 months out.
That's what I was
You
gonna
had to
say.
get me a month ago to be here.
Yeah, I was
And I
gonna
was
say
like,
that.
hold on, let me check.
You know, like everyone's got their own style, and you manage it the best you can. And when we have so many breweries coming up, so much beer coming out, like, you know, you take it on in the way that feels most comfortable to you, and I'm all about that, as long as we're drinking good stuff, right?
I
Yeah.
agree.
All right, so guys, thanks so much for joining me. Let's cheers a little bit here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming by.
And I'll end it by saying thank you to the LA Brewers Guild for supporting the LA Brewers shirt.
Beautiful shirt.
Thank
where
you.
we're supporting
We love it.
some of the proceeds are going
Who's
to the
the artist
Brewers Guild. The artist is Ron from Crafted California. He's standing right there. This guy's amazing. This guy's so good.
You got all those names on there.
Yep. He's amazing. So, yeah, check out Crafted California. That's a good plug right there. This guy does work for breweries. He does merch. He does everything. And then thank you, Beer Belly, for hosting us. You put on an excellent local tap list.
Anytime.
And we're going to have a good time tonight.
Yes, we are.
I'm gonna eat those fries.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.